I don't know if there's any way to tell. Since I came in first, I'm going to start our recording, and we'll start with some fun stuff so that, well, the people who come late, I guess, will miss the fun stuff, but they won't miss anything too important. So first, welcome back, everybody. I have something fun to share. Let me get my screen up. Kelly said I could share. She had her baby. This is Brock Alexander. I know. How cute is he?
Wow.
He's just a little peanut. So, yay for Kelly. I just wanted to share that. Okay.
That's just precious.
So cute. Sounds like everybody's doing very well. She says hello. Okay. Next up. I wanted to just briefly say, and I shared this with some of you in our check-ins over the last few weeks. I'll send out more detail of a recap in the email tomorrow, but there will be more time off from Tuesday sessions as the fall turns into winter. So you have time to work on your policy projects and time to work on your capstone project presentations. So don't feel like you're going to have to cram all of that in on top of these as well. So we'll stop having these Tuesday sessions as often so that you can use that time instead to work on those things. So don't stress yourself out, hopefully, too much about that. I'll also be sharing more information about what the capstone presentation will look like so you can be preparing for what kind of information and materials you should have for that. There's a documentary that our content lead, who I will introduce in a moment, will be sharing a clip of next week, and I will be sending you an Amazon gift card so that if you can rent and watch the whole documentary on your own time before next week's session or after, you can use the gift card to do that. If you've never received an Amazon gift card in the email from someone, it looks a little bit fishy. So I just wanted to let you know that it's coming. It's not going to ask you for any personal information, but it's just a gift card. It is real. It'll come from us. It'll be for $2.99 to rent the documentary. And then lastly, some reminders about an announcement that the sites for the site visits are finally confirmed. Yay. So I will be sending out the site visit assignments tomorrow in the follow-up email as well. But just some reminders about booking travel. If you'll be going in groups of 4, mostly groups of 4, there'll be one group of 5. If you can try to coordinate flight times to some extent so that you can share rental cars, maybe have 2 cars per group probably would be ideal. Since you'll be going largely to the same places, that would be great. If it's not possible, let me know and we can work it out. But ideally, I think 2 cars per group would be great. And then we'll also recommend a hotel to book, which will facilitate the car sharing as well. But if for some reason that hotel that we recommend won't work, again, let me know. It is not a problem at all if prepaying for flights and or hotels is an issue. Just let me know and I can book them for you if you send me the flights that you want and confirm the hotels. And then friendly reminder, I'll send out the travel guide tomorrow as well, which has a link to GSA rates that you can look at for your area. But please keep to those rates for meals as well as hotels. Within reason, there might be, a time when your snack is whatever, $6 instead of $5 or whatever the rate difference is. But please just try to be reasonable with those meal costs. And I had one last thing that I thought of that I probably will not remember for a minute. So I think that's all of my announcements regarding site visits and travel. Oh, I remember what it was. So it's the week of October 9th. 4 of the 5 groups will be traveling October 10th to the 13th. That's Tuesday to Friday because the school is closed on Monday the 9th. But 1 group will be traveling the 9th to the 12th, Monday to Thursday, because the school is open on Monday. So when you get your site visits tomorrow, or the assignments tomorrow, I'll send out the dates as well, but just heads up on that. Any questions, knowing I'm going to be sending out more information tomorrow, but any questions right off the bat? Okay, awesome. Well, we are joined by a new wonderful content expert tonight, Barb. Barb, I'll pass it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Natalie. So my name is Barb McCurra, and we've met at the orientation, I think, with some of you this last January. Can you believe it was that long ago? I'm trying to figure out here exactly what happened to my screen now, but I think I'm all right. You guys seeing the slideshow now?
We do, but it's not in full screen yet.
It's not in full
Not sure
screen
if it's
yet.
supposed to be.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect.
Oops, no, not that one. Okay, so anyway, we met last year, or at the beginning of the year, when you guys had your orientation. It was really fun to meet you all. And I've been following your story on the social media to the best extent that I can, but it sounds like and looks like you guys have been learning lots of amazing material and doing some amazing work. So it's been really fun. I was a school nutrition director for 35 years. So I was in the trenches where you all are now, doing the hard work with our staff. And the last 15 years or so of my school nutrition director work was working at Hopkins Public Schools, where we transformed our school meal program to be one that was largely convenience food and fast food oriented to almost completely scratch cooked meal service, where 95% of our food was cooked from scratch, and we had fresh fruit and vegetable bars, and we had school gardens, and we offered a ton of different programs through the USDA, National School Breakfast, School Lunch, After School Program, Summer Food Service Program. We were one of the first school nutrition programs in the country to have a summer food service truck. That was really fun to bring food to some of the community parks and stuff. So school nutrition is in my DNA. Once I started in school nutrition back in 1988, I never looked back. And I really enjoyed this profession. When I retired from my job last year, I started a consulting business because I just couldn't be done with it. I knew that there was more work to be done and more schools that were looking for help and guidance on how to transform their school meals. And I don't know, tell everybody I'll probably be doing this till I'm 75 or so. I don't know. I just love it. It's not really work to me. So you guys just got done with your school meal or your summer break. Oops. So just as a popcorn activity, and because summer is officially done now because of Labor Day weekend, what kind of summer activity do you guys most fondly remember from this last summer? Anybody can contribute.
I'll just say my 2 cents. Hi, Molly. I didn't have a summer, so it was not memorable.
Some years are like that, aren't they? I'm sorry.
I will second Molly's not really having a summer, but my nieces came into town from Texas for 2 weeks, so I got to, and I don't have kids, so I'm not used to like watching children for multiple days at a time. So that was exhausting, but it was honestly like the highlight of my year is just being with them for the 2 weeks I had them. So
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So I'm not that boring and I didn't work the whole summer. I did take 2 weeks and I camped through Colorado.
Oh,
And so that was really fun going through peach country and wine country and visiting a handful of distilleries through Colorado.
mm-hmm. Nice.
I took a week off. We went out to the desert and just got to experience the rain this summer in the desert. It was beautiful.
Mm.
And for us work wise, we partnered more often this summer with our school library, and we've been doing great. Like I think this year we were calculating the numbers. We did about 3,000 meals just at our library site, which is a
Wow.
big deal for us because we were only doing 1 day last year, and this year we did 2 days. So we were excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. For all of you working summer programs, it's uber easy work, isn't it? It's just like, what's the big deal about summer programs? Why do you say it's so hard? Isn't that what you hear in your schools a lot? Mm. Summer programs are tough to manage, man. All right. Well, one of the fun things that I remember doing this summer is that we went to Glacier National Park for the first time ever. Our son and daughter-in-law moved out there in January, and they took us to Glacier National Park, and it was absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend to go there and do some of those wonderful hikes. We got to see lots of wildlife, got to take dips into some of those cold glacier lakes. Highly recommend doing that. Some people might say that they got to swim. Not me. I could only make it for a dip. It was like officially got my hair wet, and that was it. So that was really great this last summer to do. All right, so we had a video that I had recommended that people watch about the food systems. Oh, going the wrong way. And then just gave you some prompts to try and think about what that video meant, and thinking about what does sustainable nutrition mean, why is this important, and how can school meals successfully impact our food system transformation efforts. Does anybody want to? I'm sorry, I'm trying to navigate two monitors here. I was lamenting with Natalie a little bit that I have a full-time job in this job, and we have two different computers, and I have different accounts, and I'm trying to navigate it all. So I apologize for how bumpy this might be tonight. So then, are you seeing the full screen? Or are you seeing the presenter screen too?
We see both right now.
Okay,
There you go.
I'm gonna move that over there. All right. That's better. So how many people got to take a chance to watch the "Why do we need to change our food system" video? All right. A handful of you did. That's great. So then what does sustainable nutrition mean? Anybody care to contribute?
Well, I can definitely talk about it. So I actually made a post, and sustainability is really important to me. It's actually like I live in a tract home, and so we actually have a sustainable garden in our backyard. So I'm on 6,000 square feet lot, and you'd never know that we produce almost enough vegetables like during the summertime that we don't have to buy most of your mainstream vegetables from tomatoes and zucchini and
Mhm.
apricots and so sustainable really to me is that something that's continually able to produce without damaging the environment and the ecosystem to where it can always grow to support what's going on around. So my wife and I are actually actively looking at possibly selling our house to find something a little bit bigger so we can
Mhm.
even make a larger impact where we can actually can and process to be able to have things that are flavored seasonally but out of the season, but still something that we produced.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so for me personally, it's important because when you're practicing sustainability is that you can control everything that goes in and everything that comes out of your food. And that as we do these things and as a school district, you know, I related to the buying power. So we serve approximately 45,000 meals a day at the district that I'm at. And if we encourage others to go sustainable and go regenerative farming, we can make that impact in the communities because even if they only want to do it as a part of a monetary value, our purchase changes what they can and cannot do. Because if they're not meeting the needs that we have, we're obviously going to look somewhere else. But it
Right.
impacts the community because of the jobs that it can provide, what it can do to say that, hey, even in the event of a disaster while everyone else is struggling, you know, local farms were able to keep a lot of districts available and open and sustaining with the product. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's excellent explanation, Warren. Thank you very much for sharing. So I have another little video that I would like for us to take 3 minutes or so to watch, and then we can review those 3 questions a little bit on the back side of it. So hopefully things work out here and it plays like it's supposed to. Yeah, this one you don't have to hear. Let me see. So then what does that bring up for people to think about that video that you just saw and those questions that we had on our screen?
I think COVID changed a lot of things. At least for our district, it wasn't even a supply issue, it was a distribution and logistics issue. And obviously, when our food has to like ping pong all over the country to come back to us, or when we are like, we have food traveling like orange juice, if the oranges are grown in Florida and then they're traveling to Texas to get squeezed and packaged, and then they're coming back to Virginia to go on our trays. But first they go to Richmond and they come to our district. You know, it's one of those situations where I think that that's another important thing. And I really like that a lot of people are focused on food miles now. I think that's a helpful tool and kind of more a visual thing that more people can understand, and when, as opposed to saying like supply chain and logistics and, you know, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, by 2050, there'll be 2 billion more people on our planet. And so the question always is how will we feed everyone? And, you know, the other part of that discussion is we have people on opposite ends of the spectrum. We have a large part of our world population that struggles with nutrition challenges, starvation and malnutrition. Then we also have the other part of our population that struggles with obesity and overconsumption. And so for me, part of this whole sustainability in schools is such a deep topic. Like, honestly, I can go in 100 different directions with this, with school nutrition people. And it's hard for me to like kind of stay focused on it because it's such a deep well for us to do so much work in. But for me, one of the most important things is kind of what Warren said, like our buying power, our influence on a food system that is currently producing foods that aren't healthy for us, that's not healthy for our planet. It's high in fat, sugar, salt, and meat. It's not producing even 50% of the fruits and vegetables that we're supposed to be eating for fresh, for our recommended diets, right? So I really feel like school nutrition, along with some other institutions, but especially school nutrition, is really well positioned to flip that discussion from we have to produce enough food to feed 9 billion people to we have to produce the right kinds of foods for us all to be healthy and happy and to be sustainable, right? Our food system right now lacks diversity. Currently, about 75% of our food comes from just 12 plants and 5 animal species. Anybody remember what happened in Ireland when the potato famine happened? People of Ireland almost starved to death because they largely lived off of potatoes. And when they had a disease that hit their potato crops, they almost starved to death because they were too into monocropping. And so we really have to make sure that we include diversity, which is one of those things that we do when we're working with farmers. And their farmers are always interested in the science behind the growing of food. So they're always excited to grow new and different kinds of foods, different varieties of tomatoes, different varieties of squash and cucumbers and all those things, right? So variety, even within a singular food item, is really important. You know, tomatoes were grown for such a long time so that it was the right size tomato that grew on the right size plant so that the pickers would be able to come by and easily pick the tomatoes from the plants and have it go in the wagons behind them. They weren't grown for flavor. They weren't grown for nutrition or any of those. It was grown to meet some industry operational standards, not for human consumption standards. And then also when we think about sustainability, we have to think about food waste. There's an enormous amount of food waste in our food systems. And schools have been hit with that pretty hard for several reasons over the years. Most recently, it was because of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Challenge. You know, they made those changes and we got hit really hard with, well, the kids are throwing away all the food. Well, the kids will throw away all the food if we don't do our other work. And our other work is teaching kids about food, right? So we had to pair those changes, those reformations of what we were offering kids. We had to pair those with some other relationship building and knowledge building of what we were doing and why it was important. And then there's our natural resources that are under pressure. Our sources of fresh water are stressed, our water sources are polluted, and about 33% of our soils are degraded. And we're losing biodiversity, which affects plant life. And we all know that everything is in a fine balance in our world. When one plant or animal dies, that something relies on it. Another 1, 2, 3 or more become endangered because they've lost their food source. So the bottom line is that we need to produce and eat differently. So the video that you watched was from the United Nations 2021 Food Systems Summit, and it's called Good Food for All. And I would encourage you to visit the website. They have lots of good resources to help inform you yourself on the different aspects of sustainability, and to use to help teach children as well. So again, trying to go between my two screens here. That was the video. So why is this important to the food system? School nutrition is big business, right? Does anybody know how big it is? Can you imagine how many lunches and breakfast and commodity foods our segment represents? Anybody want to take a guess? How many school lunches in a year?
1 billion.
Yeah, I would say it's in the billions.
You are right. 5.1 billion school meals, school lunches every year. How many breakfasts?
250,000.
Oh, it's going to be a close to a billion.
Yeah,
2.45 billion school
You can see the
lunches.
difference of lunches and breakfast in my district. So there you go.
Yeah. But honestly, in 35 years of being in school nutrition, I was amazed when I looked up those numbers, because that has come a long way. The breakfast number has in the last 10 years come a long way. And then if you look at the commodity dollars that we spend every year in the school nutrition program, is $1.3 million is spent in commodity foods. So when you are talking about this type of buying power as in market influence, as Warren was talking about, what we can be called to be a part of is something that they refer to as anchor institutions. So anchor institutions are place-based, mission-driven entities such as hospitals, universities, schools, and government agencies that leverage their economic power along with their human and intellectual resources to improve the long-term health and social welfare of their communities, which includes our food systems. So we can help build a more sustainable and just food system, not only locally, but globally. We've seen in that one short video that we watched together that our choices affect people around the world. And as the United States goes, the world goes. And so if we start making changes, other countries will also make changes. So then, it always wants to go the wrong way. What foods we serve on our meals, on our meal lines, tell our students about what is important and what should be valued when we're trying to teach kids about sustainability. So we have to think about, what are they seeing the most of on our serving lines? What are they hearing the most about when we're talking with them? What are they getting samples of to taste? What are they getting the opportunity to grow or cook with? And what are the aromas in the school? So why would, well, first let me ask this question. What do you predominantly see on this screen of what I'm talking about? What's heavily represented?
Plants.
Plants. So what children see, hear, taste, feel, and smell in our cafeterias should be heavily plant-based, right? Because what don't we even grow enough of in the world to feed what we're supposed to be eating every day in our dietary patterns? Fruits and vegetables, right? We want to focus on center of the plate all of the time.
Attendance for a short time during.
Even if you think about our darn lunch trays, right? What's big and in the center of those lunch trays? The entree portion, right? What do people usually serve first on the serving lines? Entrees. What are people doing taste tests on? Entrees. We need to flip that around and to start having kids walk into cafeterias and see a beautiful fresh fruit and vegetable bar first. What do we need to be doing taste tests of? Vegetables. What do we need to be talking with the kids most about? Vegetables. What should we have them growing? Anybody want to take a guess? What should they be smelling?
Vegetables.
Yes. What should they be smelling? Some garden fresh roasted tomato sauce that you're going to process and freeze to use throughout the year. Has anybody ever done that in your kitchens? Made like homemade roasted tomato sauce to use like in marinara and all that? If you haven't, you should consider trying it. We did it in our schools. Some years we bought over 30,000 pounds of tomatoes, and our cooks would roast them off with onions and garlic and salt and pepper and herbs, and the entire school would smell like marinara sauce for the day, and it made everybody hungry. But then we would freeze that marinara sauce, and we would use it throughout the school year then, and identify it on our menu as a school-made roasted tomato sauce. And the kids would remember what it smelled like on the days that we were making it, right? So everybody ate on those days because it was incredibly delicious tomato sauce. But basically, children learn by what we do, not by what we say. And I cannot underscore this enough of what we found to be true in Hopkins. What we set our expectations for what we could do with children in our school lunch program, and how we talked with kids, and how we set up everything so that it would emphasize and underscore what our focus was, which was helping kids fall in love with vegetables. Like, it was so easy to figure out what our next steps needed to be then. And honestly, when you focus on the vegetables rather than the entrees, some of the work actually becomes easier. It might sound like that's more difficult because in America, we just predominantly don't teach kids a lot of positive attributes about vegetables. Even adults have a hard time with that. But there's a lot less equipment that's really needed for vegetables. You don't need all the space to focus on vegetables. You don't have to invest quite as much initially in training for staff to gain new scratch cooking skills. So vegetables is a great place to start. Fresh fruit and vegetables, but we always focus on vegetables because it's easy to get kids to eat fruit, right? So what we do speaks so loud they can't hear a word we're saying. And this is important again, because what we're teaching our kids in schools, and schools are an educational institution, and we can't separate ourselves from that. Whether you're talking about the community, whether you're talking about parents or kids, we are inside of an educational institution. So again, what we do speaks so loud, they can't hear a word we're saying. The meal programs that we're delivering to students, what we have in them, and how it relates to sustainability affects people around the world. That's a pretty big task, right? That's a pretty big responsibility. And again, here are just some of the tenets of the Good Food for All that you'll find on their website that we've seen in the video. Good food begins with farmers. Good food is nutritious food. Good food saves lives. Good food is vulnerable to disruption. It takes disruptions like COVID and it recovers quickly, which is one of the things we haven't seen in our food system. It did not take that disruption very well. We're still seeing great supply chain challenges. Good food is not always a choice. And that is probably, for me, one of the saddest things to think about, that good food is not always a choice. And so we in school nutrition really need to make sure that we are always making it a choice for all of the kids in schools who don't have that choice at home. Good food powers people and economies. I know that you guys have already done some work on DEI, and food justice is the underpinnings of racial inequities. Slavery started in the fields where people had to work as slaves so that white people could build wealth. And in our current food system, it is largely that same way. Food systems are not paid well. We don't want to pay very much for our food. And it continues the inequities that our food system was built on. And so when we value good food and we talk about the importance of it with kids, it helps them understand why school meals might be a little bit more expensive this year than last year, because we've elevated our game. Our current game now is not going to be to buy the cheapest food. It's going to be to buy the best nutrient dense food that we can afford to buy. And that might be a little bit more. And, you know, the last thing is I love how that video ended. Good food is about love. I mean, we need food to survive, right? And for me, cooking for people and having them enjoy the food that I've helped make is like an expression of love for me, and always has been. That was probably part of my family upbringing growing up. And I think that kids with school nutrition professionals can feel that same way. We do incredible work in schools with building relationships with kids and serving kids with love and caring about what we serve them. I think helps them feel cared for and helps them feel love, which is so important in our child mental health crisis that we're having these days. And good food helps with mental health. You know, it's one thing that feeds into another. There isn't any part of this that is separate from another part. It's all connected. So we're going to talk a little bit about evaluating menus and recipes. And this is going to be a little bit of a repeat of what we've been talking about. But again, it kind of goes with my thought process of where you place your emphasis on is what you are portraying is most important. So here's a short video from a Time magazine article, and we'll talk about how this links to school nutrition on the backside. Oop. Why didn't that play? This might be an advertisement at first. Are you guys seeing a time screen on your?
Yeah, we
hope?
do.
Good. It's going to be an ad that plays at first. But...
And so this is about our appetite for risk and what we do to mitigate risk. I'm absolutely optimistic and confident there are solutions, but we have to make the right decisions now. Seed banking is part of that. Research on, as I just mentioned, for example, less water demanding varieties of rice. I think there's a strong argument to encourage populations all around the world to use a greater variety of food sources. There's about 5,500 different varieties of plants which are in some way edible, and yet we found ourselves concentrating on a very narrow selection. And if you go to South America, for instance, there's an extraordinary variety of potatoes that you simply don't see in a supermarket in London or Hong Kong. So I think there are a number of steps that can be taken. Another factor on this, of course, is the balance of vegetable-based diets versus meat-based diets. A kilogram of beef, for example, is about 30 times more demanding on the environment in terms of water, greenhouse gas emissions compared with a kilogram of plant protein. And so educating the public, helping them to understand the choices they make as consumers is really important. And I would imagine, I would hope that in the future, people still eat meat, beef, but it's a treat. It's a special, rare occasion, particularly beef, compared with pork and chicken, is extremely demanding on the environment. But this requires public education, public understanding. So I think a greater variety in what we eat, a recognition of the environmental impact on meat, and getting that balance right is incredibly important.
All right. So there is more to this article on Time that says the world is headed for a food security crisis, and here's how we can avert it. And I have these all like linked in a document that I'll be sharing with you, so you can all have links to what we're talking about and what we're seeing here tonight, moving forward. So the school nutrition professionals can focus on plant-forward meals in multiple ways, just like we said, how we set up our serving lines, vegetables and fruit first. What we talk the most about, vegetables and fruit. What we offer the most variety of, vegetables and fruit. And what we conduct lots of taste testing on, you've got it, fruits and vegetables. And as I said, this can be an easier lift in changing curiosity and expanding the variety of foods that kids eat. Because the equipment and space to do this versus scratch cooked entrees takes less resources and skills, training, space, and it's where our diets are most efficient. And it is a great strategy to increase sustainability by increasing the demand and market for foods that take less resources to produce and distribute. So if we're talking about plant proteins, we can see that there are your common foods that are very protein-rich sources per 100 grams. And the one thing that I would propose that we think about here is oftentimes in schools, we're very concerned about meeting the nutrition standards set by the USDA. For instance, making sure that we have exactly 2 ounces of diced chicken in a scoop on our salad bar so that the students get exactly 2 ounces, right? Because that's what the requirements are. And that's true. Yes, we are required to do that. But remember, they have us calculate that by the total amount of protein that we've produced and served and comparing that against what we've served. And the reason why that's important is because every single serving isn't necessarily going to be 2 ounces always. If we think about if we offer chili, if we offer lasagna, if we offer pasta sauce, we mix that protein in with other foods, right? And so, and we're using containers and it's not exact measuring. And so not everybody is getting exactly 2 ounces, but over the course of time, we know that in general, when children are taking the entrees of servings of meat, in general, they're getting about 2 ounces. When we're talking about these plant-rich foods, not all of these foods should be thought of in a way to serve 2 ounces. And in some ways, it might be an additional cost to your program. But what we're really after is, yes, meeting those USDA nutritional requirements, but really trying to meet the nutritional requirements of growing children in a healthier manner, right? So that if we look at the seeds, we can see that flax seeds and hemp seeds and sesame seeds can be high in plant proteins, but we aren't going to serve kids 2 ounces of those, right? Like, how are they going to choke that down? But we can add some of those seeds to our scratch-made muffins, and we can amp up the amount of protein that is in those muffins so that nutritionally their bodies digest it better, which keeps them satiated longer for those morning classroom periods and helps give them more protein for growing muscles. And so my little rant about the 2 ounces of protein thing was just to try and unravel a little bit of what is really kind of, hammered into our heads about making sure we meet all the dietary guidelines and really almost like nothing more, like just meet the guidelines and don't think about doing additional beyond that because it's a cost to the program. Yes, it's a cost to the program to take and add pumpkin seeds or flaxseed, whatever it is, to your muffins, your school-made breads, to maybe sprinkle it inside your spaghetti sauce. But again, what you're doing is providing a more nutrient-dense food for the children to grow healthy and to be successful in the classroom. So some of these things you can change out quite easily. The black beans, the chickpeas, all of those are really quite easy to change out. But some of the other items you can think about as just being friendly additions to some of your foods to make them more nutrient dense, because that is our goal. We're just trying to help kids understand the health benefit of plant-rich diets. And it's okay, I think, too, to tell kids that you're adding that to it. I don't necessarily believe in that sneaky healthy food type approach to getting kids to eat that stuff, because if they don't know they're eating it when they know they're eating it and they haven't been coached on the fact of why it's there and why it's good for them and why it's good for the earth, they can really you'll break your trust that they have in you if you aren't being forthright. So if you're putting flaxseed in your pumpkin scratch-made muffins, on the line, label it as pumpkin muffins with flaxseed added, so that what's flaxseed? Well, then it engages in opportunities for conversations, right? And little bits of nuggets and learning. Well, it's a seed that helps increase protein in those muffins, and it's going to help keep you fuller in the morning longer until you get back to us at lunchtime when we can feed you more delicious food. So don't be afraid to use some of those terminologies with the kids and try and stay away from that. I think they used to call it like stealth food marketing. there's a name for plant forward diets, and doing my research, oops, called the flexitarian. Has anybody ever heard of the flexitarian? And not that I really need to feed into any other diet crazes, but when I found this, I thought that'd be kind of an interesting way to coax especially secondary kids into understanding that not all protein needs to come from animal meat, right? That there's different foods that have protein in them that they can add to their diets that is a healthier option for them and for the planet. So a flexitarian diet can generally be defined as a semi-vegetarian, plant-forward diet. It's a flexible eating style that emphasizes the addition of plant or plant-based foods and beverages. It incorporates dairy and eggs and encourages meat to be consumed less frequently. And there aren't any set calories or macronutrient goals in a flexitarian diet. The principles also align with the 2020-2025 dietary guidelines. And right now, the emerging evidence suggests that a flexitarian diet can help with reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, certain types of cancer, as well as helping with weight management. So the one thing that I liked about it is, there are so many diets out there on the market, and they're just so very definitive. And this one is flexible, right? Because for me, I'm always somewhere in the middle. I'm never too far left. I'm never too far right. It's like the happy place is somewhere in the middle. And so those very heavily restrictive diets, I think, are damaging to people's understanding about what good health is and how to eat for a healthy body and a healthy planet.
I always thought the whole flexitarian thing was kind of weird because in Asian culture, that's just typically how we eat because meat is expensive. So it's really plant forward. So when I hear like flexitarian and all this, I'm just thinking like minimally processed, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, very good point. I think the Asian culture is very plant forward, and it's oftentimes one of the cultures when we were transforming at Hopkins that I referred to, like, children from Asian cultures grow up eating vegetables for breakfast, grow up eating seaweed, and it's like totally normal. And so this thing in America about what kids will or won't eat, it's all in our head, and it's all in how we're presenting it and how we're reacting to it as adults. And so if we think that it is a good food and that it's acceptable and that it's culturally relevant, we behave differently, and kids pick up on that. Mm-hmm.
Because in my house, my kids, I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they know it's hugely expected that there's like vegetables incorporated into every meal, whether it's a stir fry, a soup, or if it's like something cooked on the side. Like if they don't see a vegetable integrated into their meal, they're like, what's going on? Like, I'm supposed to eat this. And then when their friends come over, it's like not the norm. It's like, I just want an orange. I'm like, gosh, sorry, that was my rant.
No, I totally love that. I love that. I love that they know when they don't see it on the table, something's off with mom. Like, what's going on? So I think that there's a great resource out there. Well, there's many great resources, but one of them that I found is the Center for Eco-Literacy. It's out of California, but they have this one resource that is a guide to help school nutrition people get beyond the Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat and tofu and other animal protein substitutes. And they help schools figure out how to incorporate more plant-forward meals into their menus. And they have like these great posters that you can download and print for free. And I think they're absolutely gorgeous, right? And I'm gonna say something that I know I always enter this conversation with such trepidation because I know that it always comes from a really good place in people's heart. But we oftentimes will decorate school lunch lines with really inexpensive supplies from dollar stores. And I encourage school nutrition professionals to upgrade the decorations and focus and do some focus on holidays, yes, but really place the emphasis again on what we're there to do, which is to help educate them about what good food looks like and what it tastes like and how it grows and everything else. And so when I see free resources like these posters, man, I was all over things like that because, you know, you could pay $20 a poster for some of those posters from other nutrition resources. And if you're a school nutrition program that struggles for the marketing resource, which many school districts do, I just love it when organizations offer those kind of great looking posters for free. So I'll have those links on that document as well that you'll be able to find. One of the other resources that they provide is some information on taste testing, which is a really important part of sustainability in schools, because so often we get started in this work of trying to do plant-forward foods, and we aren't doing the taste testing. And kids need taste testing. They need to explore. And if you are a school that is high in free and reduced kids, they aren't going to chance their lunch on something that they may not like. And so you'll never get them to commit to taste testing something as part of their lunch. You have to do it separately. And I would also recommend that when you're doing it, you try and offer a food served 2 different ways at the same time. For instance, if you are doing broccoli, offer broccoli steamed and offer it roasted, and maybe even roasted is cold rather than hot. And one of the things that you're doing is teaching the kids that food tastes differently when it's prepared differently, and that it's not a definitive yes or no, I like this right now or not, right? So even maybe rather than roasted broccoli, maybe it's steamed broccoli and a broccoli salad, because when food is mixed with other food, it sometimes tastes different. So taste testing is an essential part of moving forward with a plant-forward menu. Kids need to know what it's going to look like, what it's going to smell like, what it feels like, how it sounds, how it tastes. They use their senses. And so we need to think about that, and we need to make sure that when we are doing taste testing, we use that kind of language for how we talk about it with kids as well. And we need to prepare kids for the taste testing, right? Rather than just a pop quiz when they come in the cafeteria, it's better if you can send an email to the school administration and the classroom teachers ahead of your taste testing event and ask the classroom teachers to tell the students about the taste testing event. Kids can adjust their thinking, minds, expectations, and they can be ready and prepared to try new things. And in that email, ask the school staff to be supportive and good role models, and to also enjoy the taste testing with the students. And in that email, because we know that we have plenty of work to do with adults, because this food system didn't just change overnight. We have plenty of adults that work in schools that aren't aware what a good food system looks like. Include an educational nugget or two in that email to the classroom teachers It'll help educate the classroom teachers and ask them to share it with the students so that it ties to something in the classroom. And some of what we found when we were doing that were classroom teachers didn't start out doing it right away, but they knew that when we would send them one of those, they would specifically tie, say, a small writing assignment to whatever we were testing in the cafeteria that day. So they started tying our activities to the classroom, which is always really great to see. And then after we do the taste testing, it's important to collect data from the taste test events and to send those results to the classroom, teachers, and the school staff and school administration, and ask them to share that back with the students on how successful the taste testing event was. Make sure that you let them know how many of the students tried it versus the enrollment of the school, and the percentage of students who loved it and liked it. And I recommend that you combine that number because it can sound a little more influential. And that's what we're trying to change, the psychology of thinking, right? So if you've got a school of 500 kids and 375 kids tried it, and 70% of the kids either loved it or liked it, wow, that's like if I'm a kid in the classroom and a teacher is reading that to me and I didn't try it that time, I might think, what did I miss out on? Right? So I might be more open to trying things the next time. One of the things that I'm hoping that you get from this is that there's so much psychology behind transforming your school nutrition program and developing adventurous and good food explorers. It is something that has been used in the food industry in not such a positive way, and we need to learn from it and use it in a good way. And that's what all of these strategies are doing. And even notice on the taste testing there that it's loved it, liked it, tried it. And what did we historically used to do? We used to have an icky face and a medium face and a happy face. And an icky face is like a negative connotation, right? We use something similar to this. We used loved it, liked it, and then we said the other option that they could put their sticky thing on was not my favorite yet. Yet being the magic word. Yet fixes the brain to think, to be open to new possibilities in the future. And so even when children talk with us on the lines like, oh, I don't like broccoli. We said, oh, you don't like broccoli yet? Well, have you tried it this way or this way? And then if they, yeah, I've tried it that way and I still don't like it. Oh, well, I'm sure that we'll find a way in the future for you to get to like it, right? So it's always setting that expectation and readjusting the brain to thinking that there is going to be a way and a day in the future that the student will probably like it. It's like with our youngest child, our son, he detested lettuce salads growing up. And we had them frequently. And I would put one little lettuce leaf on his plate, and encourage him to try it. Mom, I hate lettuce. And I know, but someday you're going to grow up and you're going to like lettuce. And, lo and behold, he's now 30 plus years old and he eats a huge lettuce salad every day for lunch. So it's like setting the expectations, setting the stage for the type of engagement and behavior that you're hoping to see. Whenever you do that, children almost always anybody will rise to that occasion, right? So if you think positively, then it's going to happen. And again, these strategies seem like, why are we talking about these in sustainability? But it's important because if we don't teach kids how to eat plant forward and how to be more open to trying foods, our efforts are going to fail and it is going to seem like we are pushing boulders uphill. And even when you start this work, it will seem like you're pushing a boulder uphill. But honest to God, once you get started and things start clicking, it turns the opposite way. It's like a snowball going downhill, that it starts very small and it starts gathering more and more snow, and it's this huge monumental snowball by the time it gets down to the bottom of the hill. So it might feel like it in the beginning, like you're pushing up a boulder, but keep trying, keep working at it, and soon enough it'll be turned around the other way. Some other strategies for doing plant forward meals is, I know that in the sustainability School Food Institute course, are some really great suggestions in there, and that Chef Ann Foundation does a lot of work with this. As this is an organization called Beans is How, and beans are incredibly simple, affordable solution to our financial, health, and environmental challenges. And so that'll be another resource that I'll put in that document for you. They have wonderful recipes on there. They have some great advice on there on how to handle beans. And the one recommendation that I would make on beans, and what we found with kids, is that you need to kind of play around with beans for kids. If they haven't been eating many of them, oftentimes the softer the bean bite, the better the kids will accept it. And once you get them to accept the softer bite beans, then you can move into some of the firmer ones. For instance, like when we first started making chili, we had kids really turning up their nose and not enjoying it, and we were using just the regular firm kidney beans in the chili. We did some research and we found some chili beans that were pinto beans that were pretty whole, and they were canned in a chili sauce, which kind of made them even softer yet. So when we started making chili, we started using the chili beans. And then as the students start accepting the chili with those beans in it, then we moved into kidney beans. We would switch out so many of the chili beans for the kidney beans, but it was kind of a gradual change that we would do. And that those chili beans really enrich the umami flavor of the bean and really help with the acceptance of that. And then also, you know, like using cultural foods to introduce beans and legumes and stuff into the diets, black beans and using lentils with dal and hummus, making chickpeas, using cultural foods to introduce those foods is a great way to get kids to enjoy beans, because truly they can. Again, setting expectations for how do we do this. I expect kids are going to like beans. People like beans all over the world. They eat beans. How is it that we can do this so that our kids will enjoy beans? Because we talked earlier in the class about how to add some foods to other foods to make them more nutrient dense, like buying flaxseed or hemp seed to add to your muffins to increase the protein content, but it's really not going to count towards anything. Well, here's a way that you can help reduce your food cost so that things stay in balance, right? And you don't have to do all beans. I was reading about a study that was done in college campuses that up to 2/3 of the animal protein can be replaced with beans with little to no negative impact of student acceptance. So if you're making tacos, rather than planning the full 2 ounces of protein being beef, start out by replacing 25% of it with beans. And then if that goes well, move it up to 50% and see if you can get up to 75%, right? So there's lots of different ways on how you can move the needle on beans. So that is a little bit on the plant forward meals. I'm a little bit behind my schedule a bit, so I'm going to have to stop talking so much and move forward more. Next, we're going to talk about sugar. Sugar is in our school meal programs sugar is in our society at way too high levels. And in school nutrition program, we go as the food industry goes. And it needs to be part of our work to reduce sugar in school meal programs. And it is not only for our health, it is also due to sustainability. And I want to show you this brief clip that I found about some of the environmental hazards that are very real, and they're right here in the United States.
A lot of the country's cane sugar comes from this area. In Florida, companies burn the sugar crop, so rid it of its outer leafy stalk for harvesting. But other areas of the world that produce cane sugar have stopped using this method because of the ash that blows into the air.
Residents had complained for years about illnesses that they'd claimed were linked to sugarcane burning, pollution, ash, and soot that rained on the community. They call it black snow. So many people in the community had these nebulizers for children that were in the shapes of cartoon animals just for playing outside.
Back in the 90s, a lot of residents who were living east of these 400,000 acres, which includes West Palm Beach, started complaining that they were seeing some ash fall onto their properties. So they passed legislation in the 90s saying you can't burn when the smoke is projected to blow over that area. However, the same legislation was not passed for residents who lived west of the smoke, which is an area with about 31,000 residents who are predominantly immigrants.
This really did emerge as an example of an environmental justice issue.
So this is just the very same instrument that the Palm Beach Post reporters and ProPublica put out in the Glades area to measure air quality.
The reporters went out and did the science themselves. They set up these monitors and they did the science from the bottom up. And that's just amazing work. I've never seen anything like that.
We ended up deploying about 4 to 6 air quality sensors. And every time that smoke was projected to go over our sensors from cane burning, we sent out this automated text to those 50 or so residents and asked, hey, what's going on today? You know, there might be sugarcane burning. Do you see or smell smoke? Do you have any health conditions that you're experiencing? Can you send us any pictures?
You had people say that they take kids inside from daycare so that they can avoid the smoke. We had people who described air filters up against your windows if you want to open them to let the air in because you don't want to let the smoke and ash in.
Carol Maximo ended up getting a $218,000 commitment from NASA. She's going to be setting up shop in the Glades and deploying 42 monitors. The hypothesis is that it will add up and become pretty conclusive about what the state of the air actually is in this area, that legislators might have to take action. And deploying 42 monitors, the hypothesis is that it will add up and become pretty conclusive about what the state of the air.
Has anybody ever heard of black snow before?
I heard about it like if there's like a volcano eruption, the black snow comes out.
Yeah, but never before had I heard of it until I started preparing curriculum for this class when I was doing some research on how destructive sugarcane production is in our world. And I heard about that, and again was like another incident of how the food injustice, like sugar companies are very wealthy companies and they don't care about the air pollution that is hurting children in the areas where that snow is predominantly flowing. And apparently the legislatures aren't that concerned about it either, which just makes me incredibly sad. All those children whose lives are diminished because of the health effects of what they have to live with, and that we're contributing to it in school nutrition, because we guard some of our long practices that have been in place for a long time as a rite of passage in school nutrition that we have to change. We can see here on this screen the history of sugar consumption. In 1700, the average person consumed approximately 4.9 grams of sugar each day. And in 2009, which is when I took this study from, 50% of Americans consumed approximately 227 grams of sugar a day. So our sugar consumption has gone up exponentially. And doing even more research on sugar and how destructive it is on the environment, I found out that sugar is the most produced food crop in the world, significantly more than even corn, rice, or wheat. And sugar crops are used even in the production of like biofuels and bioplastics. But the food crop is primarily grown for food sources. And, you know, when they are producing all the sugar, there are large tracts of land that are cleared to grow the sugar crops, and it greatly impacts the biodiversity of the countries that are growing it in those areas. And sugar crops require a lot of water for both growing and processing, along with large amounts of fertilizers and pesticides. And I'm from an area out in western Minnesota that was predominantly, when I grew up, grew a bunch of different vegetables, but it has transformed over the years to be a sugar beet production farming area. And I've seen what the processing of sugar beets has done to some of the streams and lakes out there in the area where I grew up. And it's destroyed them because the fish suffocate in the water from all the pollution that is thrown out there. And this is in the land of 10,000 lakes where people are supposed to be going for, you know, recreation and fishing and such, right? But the sludge that comes and the plant matter that comes from the production of sugar crops is hugely polluting. And then if you even think about like sugarcane, maize, rice, and wheat are the top produced foods. And what do we often get from maize and rice and wheat, but more sweeteners? And so we can see that, that the average child each day gets far more sugar than what they need, because it comes in many different forms, as you can see there on your screen. And that's not even all of them. These are just the most common forms that you'll see in ingredient list. But you can see what children on average consume for sugar each day in the United States. And here's where most of the sugar can be found in a child's diet. And in school nutrition, we have largely for many years kind of complained about, well, it's not what we do, it's what they do at home. But if we're feeding breakfast and lunch, we know that we have a lot of influence on what kind of sugars can be found in protein foods, fruit and vegetables, dairy, and grains, right? We can eliminate chocolate milk, or at least greatly reduce it. You know, at Hopkins, where I was, we didn't serve any chocolate milk for breakfast. Don't see any need to add 6 teaspoons of sugar to a child to start out their day for school. We made 90% of any of the grains that we made so that we could control the amount of sugar in, and we always aimed for 6 grams or less in our servings. Fruits and vegetables, you know, not doing Nutri-Grain bars or fruit roll-ups or even juice. We stopped serving juice. And you know what? The kids missed it for about a day and a half. You know, we had to have our talking points. We had to have the stamina to get by the initial withdrawal of that stuff. And we didn't do it all at once. We paced out our changes over time. But all of these places make a huge difference. And so we can't just say, well, this is where they're getting the majority of it, and that's largely happening outside of the home, and we don't have any influence. We can remove the sugar from these areas in schools, and we can make a huge difference and a dent in that. So the USDA has had recent efforts in reducing sugar in school meals. And I can say that I'm going to shamelessly promote my full-time job right now, which is working as the program director for Action for Healthy Kids, who is the lead cooperator in an agreement with USDA Food and Nutrition Services to lead the Healthy Meals Incentives Initiatives. I'm not sure if any of you applied for or have heard of the Healthy Meal Incentives subgrant for small and rural schools, but that is led by Action for Healthy Kids, funded by USDA. And most recently, we released the Healthy Meal Incentive Recognition Award applications. They opened up in July. So the USDA recognizes that they need to help move the needle on how quickly and how much schools need to reduce sugar in school meals. And so the recognition awards has some categories that incentivizes schools to reduce sugar and to celebrate schools who do it effectively. So there will be starting in 2025, the proposed rule does limit sugars found in grain-based desserts, breakfast cereals, yogurts, and flavored milks. But for right now, there are recommendations for limiting it, but there are proposed rules for going even further with that. And I'm going to go back to this other screen really quickly. Here's how much kids are consuming right now. Here's where the USDA recommendations is coming in. This is where they need to be. So when you have school nutrition colleagues that want to complain or diminish the effectiveness of what they're doing, you can remind them that they're not even reducing it by half of what it should be to meet the dietary guidelines, the USDA. They're just trying to get us to a more reasonable place, which I would say isn't even quite reasonable. I think that they should nudge us harder. And that's part of my work with working for Action for Healthy Kids and working with the USDA is I am pushing USDA harder. They're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go that far. And I'm like, maybe we should go farther. You know, kind of like rip off that Band-Aid and let's get this work done because our kids are sick and they need us adults to figure out how to do things differently. We can't just do everything so incremental here. And so this is one of the areas that I'm not sure if you can tell, quite passionate about reducing sugar in school meals because my teeth hurt sometimes when I am looking at some of the Facebook posts of what is in these school breakfasts. Is like, and that children are starting out their day with all of that sugar. We're not setting them up for success at all. So, it is 6:30 now, and we should technically be taking a quick break. But I'm wondering if we can spend 10 minutes before we go on break to break out into breakout rooms and share ideas on how you plan to increase your focus on plant food in your meal program by adding protein-rich plant foods and focusing students on fruits and vegetables. and how you'll work to reduce sugar in your school meals. Will you focus on lunch or breakfast or both? So rather than this 20 minutes, let's do 10 minutes. And then come back and ready to share at least, we're going to say one idea per group. So Natalie is going to put everybody into break rooms. And maybe you want to take a screenshot of this. I'm not sure if this, I don't think they'll have access to this, Natalie, once they go into their break room.
That's correct.
Mhm.
We might be able to, there's a way to broadcast. I haven't done it before. So folks maybe just want to take a photo on your phone or something to prepare yourself. Otherwise I have the rooms set up and ready to go. So are you ready, Barb?
10 minutes.
All right, I'll do the magic.
See you at 6:37.
Alonzo, are you stuck or have you stepped away from your computer? I'm gonna guess the latter.
Yeah.
So
Let's
see. All right, I'll pause.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nick.
yeah, no worries.
You guys are the best.
I think you guys.
Thank you guys for all the good ideas.
All right, do we have everybody back now? All right, so who wants to start? At least one idea.
I think Josie's onto something with her marketing plan. She has like she's driving, so we can kind of fill in for her, but she has good practices in place and just needs to like do the media and marketing piece. Whereas I feel like a lot of folks have a harder time implementing like even making a plan and implementing it, whereas she's got a good program like in the process enrolling and just needs help with like media, marketing, documenting, and sharing out.
Great. How about some of the other groups?
So I was with Christina. This is Renee. I was with Christina, Rima, and Brittany, and I ended up being the person. Brittany is implementing for sugar, taking sugar out, is implementing it to take it off the menu and only have it like 2 days a week.
Excellent.
Christina, they've got they're bringing in they have some vegan options, and they source their bean burritos from a local vendor in their area. And then in Virginia, because I'm Virginia and they're all California, we do some bento boxes, and we're bringing in a bean cheese burrito. We also have a district up in Northern Virginia that's doing a bean and cheese pupusa for the high school.
Nice.
So I had to throw in my Northern Virginia people because they're doing a lot of stuff locally and pulling in from their local farmers and everything.
Fantastic. Local support. Other groups? Anybody have an idea that they talked about that you want to share?
On our group, it was Warren and, oh God, Liz, right, Liz?
Yes, it was Liz.
Yes, I was in there. I'm like, who was that Liz? Yes. We talk about, you know, eliminating juice and the flavor milks, you know, it's a step forward. A difficult one at times, for two things, cost effective and, uh, participation will might have a chance to decrease if these items are not available. The other thing is including more savory dishes like burritos. Alfonso has a chilaquiles for breakfast recipe that I want. And tacos and burritos and, you know, things like that that the kids like, and try to turn it into a more savory. And then obviously the content, the sugar content on the cereals and the yogurt, you know, monitor those and, you know, get some lower products, and that, you know, altogether should be able to start changing the spectrum of what breakfast look like. Less of a continental breakfast, more into a hearty breakfast. Become a problem when we have breakfast in the classroom and all these other things, but it's just a step forward.
Yeah. And that's what you have to do. Just take a step forward, one step at a time. It's overwhelming to do too much at once for yourselves and for the kids and the families, right? So making a decision where you're going to start and what's your next step going to be once you've gotten past the hurdle of that one, right? Like, what's beyond that one then? What will you move to next? But I love your discussion on the savory items, trying to really transition to that. I read a study about how what we pair with chocolate milk, how it influences what children, how much they'll drink and what they want to eat with it. So, and we had done a similar, just a in-house study with a dietetic intern student, to measure the amount of milk waste on a chocolate milk day versus non-chocolate milk day when they only had white milk available. And we had done quite a bit of transitioning to savory scratch cooked meals when she had done the study. And what she found was that we actually had more milk waste on chocolate milk day. More cartons of chocolate milk were taken, but we had more waste on chocolate milk day. And we couldn't really get down to the root cause of that. But what we hypothesized is that chocolate milk goes very well with items that are high in fat and sugar. That fat, sugar, salt, that's like the, you know, perfect combo, right? But when you start making foods from scratch and you start adding herbs and vegetables, chocolate milk doesn't taste that good with those. And so we hypothesize that that is why our chocolate milk consumption, even though they took it, they drank less. And so that kind of helped to diffuse the arguments about, will kids drink less if you don't offer chocolate milk? It's like, well, actually, white milk goes with these meals a lot better than chocolate milk does. Great conversations. Any other ideas? All right.
Can I share a quick, easy one? Deepa with Ground Pro. I think I'd love to share some information because this was a real easy one. Ground Pro is like a dehydrated cracked lentil product, and it's super easy. And you know, she asked me like come up with something for her, and I always think of like, what can we get rid of that's really bad? And one of the things is like these individually wrapped muffins that we get here for the kids. So we made like a lentil corn muffin out of it, and kids really love it. I'm always trying to balance sugar with fiber, and I haven't you know, it's not like it's a Tuesday tasting menu thing for me now. And all of our kids love it. So I want to make it like an incredible grab and go breakfast. So it's just really awesome. It's so easy to even if you use a bought order a mix for corn muffin, or you can make your own and just add the lentils in. It's really you can get 2 ounces of lentils in the muffin. It's so really awesome.
It's excellent. Sounds like a recipe sharing opportunity.
It's just worked really well. So if someone's trying to get into that, just something to think about.
All right. Well, let's take a quick 15-minute break. We'll come back at 7 o'clock. We've got we're a little bit behind, but I think that most of the content was kind of heavy in the front side of this, and it's a little bit lighter on the back side for tonight. So we'll come back at 7 o'clock. All right. Information for you guys. We're going to move into talking about plate waste, which is another part of sustainability in school meals, and about ways to engage students. All right, so where does loss happen in your operation? Well, during procurement, during production planning, during production itself, during cooking, during service, in the cafeteria, and even after service surplus, right? So when thinking about that, we think about ways that we can engage the students so that we can take out some of the equation of where a fair amount of loss happens, right? And if you go on the Gen Youth statement, they talk about what it's like to work with students to engage them. They say eating better today means more than the nutritional value of food. It also means where food comes from, how it was produced and packaged, where it's available, and to whom and how it impacts communities, animals, and the planet. It's about the inherent trade-offs and the tensions among nutrition, health, and the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of food, nutrition, and eating, and how we must all take part in helping to sustain a fragile planet. They go on to say that an aware, informed, and engaged youth can be a powerful force for the movement towards food that's good for me and good for the planet. Kids are curious. I mean, that's like a number one trait with kids, right? And somehow or another, we kind of magically take that curiosity out of them as they go through life. But I think that we can find ways to engage them that keeps that curiousness alive, that then fuels their longing to learn more about it, so that they are the ones who help design the solutions for the future, right? Because this isn't anything that we're going to fix overnight. But we can start by planting the seeds of knowledge and curiosity about how this whole food system works and how it's connected to everything, whether it's racial justice or climate change or health, economic stability, all of those different areas. And when you talk with kids about how it is all tied together, it really does pique their interest, and they become quite inquisitive. And I'm even going to say accepting of some of the changes that you're establishing for them. Like, you know what, we're not going to serve chocolate milk every day because sugar is horrible for the planet and horrible for our health. And we consume way too much of it. This is how much we're consuming. This is what we should consume. And so we're going to do this. Like, they aren't going to like it, but they aren't going to resist it as much as if you just take it away and don't give them any of the reasonings, right? Kids are curious. They need to know what is the reasons behind it. And so engaging the students, engaging the community, engaging families is really a key part of this. In our early work at the district that I was at, we started out a couple of our falls with newsletters that were sent to all households in the attendance area of our district. And I should have told you in the beginning, we weren't an incredibly large district. We were between 6,500 and 7,000 students, incredibly diverse community. And we had about 38% free and reduced, but that doesn't necessarily tell the whole picture, because we have some of our schools who lived in very wealthy areas and some that lived in high poverty areas. So we had some of our students come from schools that were 70% free and reduced, and some that were 6 or 10% free and reduced. And so we had very different perception and acceptance problems coming from those different households that we had to navigate too. But one of the things that we knew that we needed to do was to upgrade our kitchens. And we were getting, in our early work, we were getting a fair amount of pushback from families and parents about some of the changes that we were making. Not that it wasn't insurmountable, but we would have liked to have had less. And so we decided that we needed to throw a wider net out to gain acceptance and support for what we were doing. And so for several falls, we put out newsletters to every household in the district attendance area so that the whole entire community could get behind us. We told them the what and the why and the who of what we were doing. And it really blossomed during those years. And we ended up being successful in being a part of several different school levies where the community voted to add millions of dollars to the levy to support the building of new kitchens. That's how much support we ended up getting. So anytime that you can involve the students, the families, the community, you're going to get better buy-in and better support, and you can go farther faster. A couple of fun ways to do that are to do things like having a backyard harvest or a gleaning type event. One of the things that I always wanted us to do, but we never got around to it, but I thought would be totally fun, is a rhubarb roundup month. Do you all come from places where rhubarb is grown? Pretty well known.
Grown,
Yeah.
but not highly consumed.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what it is anymore. So I heard somebody recently say, what is this raw arb or something? It's like rhubarb. It was, part of the staple diet back on
I
farms.
love it in Virginia.
Yeah, it's delicious. But it's kind of one of those things that's been forgotten, still grows. I see it all over in backyards around here, right? But what if you got your community to chop up their rhubarb in the spring and bring it into the schools, and you could have rhubarb breakfast muffins? Or heck, just because you want to expose kids to it, do rhubarb crisps or a rhubarb sauce or something like that, right? Just for the exposure to some different things. It's not something you're ever going to have a lot of, but it's a way to engage the community. Some of the other things that I've seen are, you'll see streets lined with apples that nobody's picking. I've seen where a school teacher has organized for a class to go and pick apples to bring back to the school cafeteria to use. Something that helps the kids see that food is growing all around them, right? And that it engages the community, like the students are going out into the community and saying, hey, we need some good food for our school. What are you growing that you aren't even using, right? That we could utilize in the school. And then the kids also get the experience of what it's like to pick 20 bushel of apple. You know, they have a different level of respect for the amount of work that goes into growing food. I thought that the EPA also had a really great food waste at home campaign that you could use in a said newsletter, that you might be talking about ways that you're trying to make your school nutrition program more sustainable, looking for that connection at home where they could be doing similar things. So I included a link for that EPA guidance and toolkit to how to tie that there. So I'm just curious what you have all done. How have you guys engaged student and family in the community in some of your work?
Well, one thing that we partner with is our family engagement office does a back to school extravaganza. So we set up a fruits and vegetable table and a nutrition education table there. So as all the families are going for different things, it usually touches about 6,000 students.
Oh,
So we
wow.
kind of show them something seasonal as part of the school year. So apricots, nectarines, different vegetables that are whatever's in season. Try to give them a little bit of something to let them know, and then
Excellent strategy, using the district's back to school nights where all the families are coming so that they can see and experience it firsthand.
Our district does a resource fair for both families of the district and for employees, where they can take part. This year, we're actually going to do a mini farmers market fair. And then we also have our own nutrition education table. We're actually inviting vendors to like engage and then have parents taste product, because they don't get to taste what their kids eat. We also have I guess every 2 months we have food distribution with our family engagement community members, and they've identified families that are in need, and we try to do a reach out to them to come to a distribution.
Excellent, excellent. Any other ideas?
We created a food pantry that with our No Kid Hungry grant that we had received last year to help with different things of, you know, our at-risk children that need. I'll use this as an example. We have 5 children. They lost their mother. So the sister took in the 5 children, and she has 5 children of her own. So she's got 10 mouths to feed, and she has no ability. She has the ability, but not enough to bring in enough food to take care of them all. So we have our pantry that can help her out until she can get the services going that she needs. It's just building a relationship in the community for them to trust us, for us to trust them, and to start the roots to create a great environment and show kids that, you know, no matter where we're at in life, we can always build the future together.
Absolutely. Wonderful connection to the community. Wonderful. And to school families. I love that. All right. I kind of want to skip ahead a bit after that comment to here we go, to share tables in schools. How many people do share tables in your school? Share tables are a great way to recover some food to share with things like school food pantries and just among children amongst themselves. And again, for me, it was one of those things that what we do speaks so loud they can't hear a word we're saying. We're telling kids to throw away perfectly good food. How do we then ask them to value it as well? And it did take some extra work on our staff's part, but when they saw the value of it, they were totally committed to it. And we reviewed it with like our county public health department and the state department and everything too before we did it. But it was very successful in helping to share the food among students who needed it in the cafeteria. Some of the students took the surplus food for snacks for taking home, and that was all right. And we recovered some of the food into our program again because it was perfectly edible food and is perfectly allowable to do. In the resources that I'll provide to you, there will be links to the USDA guidance on share tables in schools, as well as some other organizations that have great materials to share with people who want to do the share tables in schools to recover that food, resources for signage and list of schools who have done it to share best practices and those kind of things. I remember a school that put in a PTA group bought a refrigerator in the cafeteria and put it in their cafeteria, and the students were allowed to put their milk right into that refrigerator, and they actually used that milk to donate to a food shelf, which is great. And I would say, and you can recover it into your program, right? Because if you're spending extra money on training and scratch cooking, because that does take a little bit of extra money before all of that work kind of balances out, it's a way for you to recover some dollars. So I strongly encourage you to consider looking at the resources for doing share tables in schools. We did it for years. We never had any problems with it. One of the other resources that's available and a way to engage students is by conducting a student food waste audit. And again, this kind of seems like it might be more work for school nutrition people, but see if you can find a science teacher or a social studies teacher, somebody who is interested in helping kids learn about food systems and how to be better consumers and caretakers of the earth. So the things that you'll get away from it is that you'll learn what students are throwing away by doing a student food waste audit. For students, it's a real life learning event for students to be doing that and to see the full extent of what is being wasted. And it can be a really targeted approach to reducing food waste. Like if you're noticing that half of the apples that you serve on any given day are thrown out because they're whole, well, then that is a good sign for you that you need to offer more apples that are cut up for students to be able to eat them, because we know that cut fruit is much easier for children who are missing teeth, who have braces, who don't have enough time, who are talking. It's easier for them to eat cut apples than it is for them to bite into whole apples, so they are able to eat it faster. If you're trying a new recipe and you are doing a plate waste study, you'll see how the students are really liking it by the amount that is being thrown away or not thrown away, right? So the USDA has this great student food waste audit that, like I said, you could pass off to a teacher, and a teacher could work with the school nutrition team on helping students conduct this food waste audit. And then the students could develop marketing campaigns around about being a food waste warrior, the eat what you take what you want, eat what you take type campaigns. And this is another resource that I found. Excellent materials. I was so impressed with this organization's materials. It was Wildlife Foundation, I think is what the name of it was. But they have these free posters again, and they have tons of World Wildlife is what it is. They have a ton of great learning resources for classrooms in each one of those grade groups. They have a lot of different engagement materials for between the classroom and students, and discussion questions. They have slideshows that are there for free. Just a great resource that I found that I would encourage you all to consider. Another way to reduce your waste is by milk dispensing. I know the Chef Ann Foundation is a huge promoter. Chef Ann herself was a renegade pioneer in this area. The USDA, I think, really pushed back hard on her when she started dispensing milk, but she was bound and determined she was going to be successful in that work, and she was, and they have been, and they've been making great influence in schools across the country on converting from cartons of milk to milk dispensers. So we're going to watch this like 2-minute video here real quick.
One of the biggest concerns for schools is milk and milk containers. Millions of milk cartons are used at schools around the country every day. Milk cartons make up about half of a school's trash volume. Replacing cartons with bulk milk dispensers and reusable cups helps eliminate this problem. Students have the ability to have as much milk as they need. They can also mix the chocolate and white milk for their desired tastes. A 9-ounce cup ensures students are getting a full serving of milk. Cups for milk are able to be reused and racked for ease in dishwashing and drying. Contact us to start your bulk milk program today.
You can see that I just picked up that.
One of the biggest concerns for schools is milk and milk containers. Millions of milk cartons.
I picked up that video from Hubert, who has a really great website that has lots of resources on the benefits of switching to bulk milk dispensing, and talking points, other resources available on there. Statistics on the amount of garbage that you keep out of landfill, the amount of milk that is saved. Actually, more milk is consumed, and so there's better consumption of the milk for kids. That's better nutrition, less waste in the landfills considerably. So it's really a win-win. And it also is a win-win with your custodians when they can get by the thinking that, oh, there's going to be so many more spills. Oddly enough, there are schools that have transformed into bulk milk dispensing say that it's not an issue. They do not see increased spills. Some of them say they see less spills. So I think that what we saw in the video there can be key is the type of glass that you get. Do you get a tall glass or do you get a shorter squat glass so that it sits better in the tray? So I think from what I read, there were some differences there. But you know, it's always nice to make friends with the custodial team because you work so closely with them, right? So if you can make it a little bit easier for them to deal with the garbage, refuse, and trying to get rid of that milk, they would love those efforts there. And it also shows that using the bulk milk dispensers also reduce energy costs. And if you think about how much energy is lost from those open milk coolers with those sides open all the time, you know, we're wasting so much energy trying to keep that milk cold while those doors are open. And so this is a much more energy efficient way to save money. And Chef Anne Foundation themselves has a great resource page in addition to the Hubert resource page that is available. So that will be in the follow-up documentation for you. We already talked about share tables. One of the other areas that I think, especially when we start getting in plant forward meals and we start thinking really heavily on that whole vegetable front, and we offer a nice variety of beautiful, colorful vegetables on our fresh garden bars, is trying to make sure that we are taking good care of the produce that we're receiving. And there are very specific areas in your walk-in coolers that you want to start storing the produce to maintain longevity of your produce. And we found that this storage chart was really helpful for us to just put right outside of the cooler door. Every year they put up a brand new one because signs get, kind of wrecked in kitchens after a year of humidity and cooking and everything else. But we put up a new one every year for everybody to be informed about what was to be stored where, to make sure that we maximize shelf life. You can also make sure that you try and work with several produce vendors or farmers who deliver on different days so that you can add to or supplement your fresh produce rather than procuring everything from just one vendor and getting one big produce delivery. Again, that might be a little bit more work in the office to place multiple orders and have different invoices to pay, but there are always going to be some trade-offs, right? What we were really wanting to do is to create sustainable school meal programs that are good for people and good for the planet. So sometimes that requires a little bit of extra steps. Make sure that you are using your past production records to help inform how much to prepare. I often found that cook managers who enlisted the assistance of the staff who were responsible for the Fresh Garden Bar, if they asked that staff member to design what they wanted to serve on the Fresh Garden Bar every week and prepare the order for it, those kitchens had far less waste when it came to the fresh produce that came in, because the people who prepare it and put it out on the salad bars really know how much they need. And so really engaging the staff in your kitchen in ordering the fresh produce that can, lose its shelf life so quickly is really a key to wasting less in the kitchen. And I think that, as we kept dissecting the sustainability in our school meal programs, we tried to really think, do, and offer foods differently. Talked about it before. We required that all whole fruit be cut and easier so that it was easier to eat. Students take less of a fruit if they want it when it's cut up. And some of the benefits are that students learn what whole fruit looks like, right? So when we started doing our fresh fruit and vegetable bars, the watermelon, cantaloupe, and pineapple would always be cubed and ready for the kids to eat. And that's great, except for kids never really learn, like, what does watermelon come on? How fun is it to eat a cantaloupe smile or a cantaloupe wedge? We call them cantaloupe smiles. But how fun is it to eat a cantaloupe wedge? Or what does the rind of a pineapple look like? And we also found that we had less waste because we weren't worried about taking so much of the rinds off when we would take watermelon, cantaloupe, and pineapple and wedge it, as opposed to just always serving it diced. We also found that freezing over-ripened fruit was a great thing to use in smoothies, or to freeze leftover bananas and use that for our scratch-made banana bread. And one of the other things that we did is we stopped buying all baby carrots because we felt like kids should know what real carrots that haven't been tumbled and stored in those waters and stuff should taste like. We found some great carrot farmers who had very clean carrots. They farmed them in sand, and they were very easy to wash and prepare. And so we didn't peel the carrots. We just washed them again, and we cut them. We used different things to cut them, whether it was using the attachment to our Hobart mixers that would slice them up into slices, or whether they use crinkle cutters to cut them, or they would use a different type of cutter. I can't remember the brand of it, to cut the carrots, but we didn't peel them. If they're clean enough, you don't need to. B, the outer peel of carrots or anything like that. If you think about what part of the plant is touching the soil that's gaining all the minerals and nutrients to grow the vegetable or fruit, that's the part that is going to be most nutrient dense. Why do we want to peel that off? We should try and keep the peels on those types of foods to the fullest extent possible, so that the students are getting the most nutrient dense possible food. We would purchase local potatoes as our only potato option. We didn't buy any French fries or tater tots or anything like that anymore. Again, trying to reduce our food mile options and trying to keep our food whole. If we were doing mashed potatoes, we just washed them and we left the peel on. We would steam them, and then we would add them to our mixer bowls with the paddle and some milk and butter and salt and pepper, and the students loved the potatoes. We also would wedge them or use the Robocoupe for diced potatoes. Other things that we did is that when peppers and onions and other vegetables that were looking like they were towards the end of their life, when we didn't think that we could use them on the fresh garden bars anymore, we would clean, slice, and dice those types of vegetables and then freeze them. And we'd use those items in things like stir fries. One of the really successful areas that the kids absolutely adored were pickled vegetables. The more vegetables we could pickle, the more they liked pickled vegetables. So if you have vegetables that you're pretty certain you're not going to go through all of them, you have to do it before they get degraded too far, but pickling vegetables is an excellent way to preserve them and gain a little bit more shelf life out of them, and kids will really enjoy them. They even started doing some of the recipes with just some interesting different spices and seasonings, like they did a curried pickle vegetable at one of the junior highs that the students just gobbled up. And of course, you can always take overripe vegetables and prep and freeze them and use them in soups or to make stocks. And then, of course, there's always that old rule of first in, first out, making sure that your staff is committed to that. So, one of the other areas is to talk about is food recovery and food donations, and that is going to be on next week's schedule. And so during the next 15 minutes, I would like for us to get into breakout rooms again and share ideas on where you think food waste shows up in your school meal operations, and what are 2 top methods you will work on to reduce food waste in your school meals. So if you want to take 15 minutes to do that and come back ready to share at least 2 ideas per group. Okay.
Opening the rooms now.
All right.
All right, we got everybody that time.
All right, yay. It's amazing how fast time goes.
Seriously.
You just think, oh, what am I going to do for 3 hours? But
I know. And then 3 hours are gone.
mm-hmm.
So we'll bring him back at 7:50. Is that going to give you enough time, or should we bring him back a little earlier?
Maybe bring him back at 7:45, maybe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I went out, I took the dogs out for a quick walk around the house and came back in and my computer was off and I just freaked. I was like, what happened? And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, I didn't have it plugged in and it's completely drained.
Oh no. Well, I'm glad I was able to power back up. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's like a thing computers used to do that, like they wouldn't just turn back on right away. You'd have to like wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I was having problems with my screen, and then I was like, oh yeah. So I was in a little bit of a panic for a second. I don't know how late I was, but I'm sorry about that.
You were like 1 minute. It was totally fine. I thought maybe you just like, decided to exit the meeting and then come back.
Not come back.
All right, I'm just sending them a broadcast. Let's see how that works, that they're coming back.
All right. Do we have most people back? I'm not seeing the breakout room this time. How many breakout rooms did we have this time?
We had 5.
5. All right. So let's have breakout rooms 1, 3, and 5 share what they were going to do to reduce food waste.
I don't think anybody knows what room they're in.
Oh,
We just kind of talk.
all right.
Yeah, I think I might have been in 5. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, Barbara, if you thought you were in 5, would you want to share?
Yeah, sure. We did some things over the years with weighing, having lean path compost scales in our cafeterias. We don't utilize them as much anymore because EcoCycle kind of changed their tune on composting, but it was a great way to see the kid, like let the kids see a visual of how much food was getting composted or wasted in the cafeteria. And we did some outreach and education with that, which I thought was nice. And obviously we still do the composting with our kitchens now. We just do it a little differently. I can't really, Nick, Jason, you guys want to chime in?
Yeah, like I talked about like the kitchen, using some clear buckets for training to, don't cut too much off of this vegetable or that vegetable. It was more about like, that, geared toward all the kitchen staff, training, getting them to work more efficiently and not waste product. And then in the dining room, it was really milk, like all those milk cartons. We don't use a bulk milk. I'm still trying to help people understand that we just don't need to serve so much milk.
Great ideas.
I think Chef Ann has bulk milk machine grants going on right now.
Oh, excellent.
They're currently closed, but we did have them.
other ideas from anybody who knows that they were in maybe group 1 or 3 that they want to share?
I think we were 3, maybe. And we talked a lot about like produce was where a lot of our conversation came into. So at least for our district, we moved towards, we changed the menu to seasonal fruit for this year. And that allowed a lot of carryover. The prior director was a little bit strict on making sure that fruit was that fruit for that day and didn't give a lot of leeway for cross utilizing. So this way we use seasonal fruit across the board. We have some staple fruits listed, but for the most part it's seasonal. So that allows them to carry over, to utilize what they need to throughout the entire week based off of what the kids did or didn't take. At least for breakfast and lunch. And then kind of the same for supper. We do a lot of training on the subgroups for vegetables. So we do have a supper program. So for vegetables, they can always pull those onto their garden bar that we have. It's not a salad bar. It's just basically the end of the line. But again, they're able to kind of use that throughout the week so that there's not a lot of waste. And then just a lot of training, mainly with the staff, like our aides reminding them that kids don't have to take the milk, because that was a lot of pushing for make sure you take your milk, make sure you take your milk, because they just didn't want kids coming back for a second milk or a milk because they forgot it. And so they would push them to take it, and then it ended up on the share table or in the trash. So a lot of verbal training, just reminding them that's not a requirement, it's optional. But yeah, so we talked a lot about produce, and that was kind of where our conversation was at, just making sure we're reducing waste when it comes to our produce.
Excellent. Yeah, you know, one of the things that we did in order to meet the vegetable subgroups, on our menus, we identified what one vegetable and one fruit was going to be every day. But we had fresh fruit and vegetable garden bars that we had set standards that there would be at least 4 vegetables and 3 fruit. Anybody want to guess why there's more vegetables than fruit? Because we want them to eat vegetables. That's why there's more vegetables than fruit. What they visually see, right? Anyway, we just had a standard that they had to have at least 4 vegetables and 3 fruits on the fresh fruit and garden bars every day. And they could determine what the other ones were. We only cared that the menu vegetable subgroup was on there every day. So they got, and that really helped to minimize waste, because they could use up partial cases from one day at the beginning of the service for one of the grades the following day. So allowing them flexibility to use the food by them, you know, the staff in the kitchen, as they see best fit to reduce waste, is an incredibly helpful tool. They, you know, when you give them the permission and responsibility, the staff does amazing things and comes up with amazing ideas. All these things that I'm talking about they were our staff's ideas. They were an amazing staff to work with. And they did an incredible work, and they really picked apart all these different parts of sustainability and really helped us build that in our program.
How did you control cost with letting them choose 75% of their fruits and vegetables on their salad bar every day, or garden bar, whichever you want to call it?
It was never a worry. I taught them about how much money we have to purchase food with out of the budget that we have, like per meal. I just like, this is what we get for a meal, and this is what labor costs, and this is what other cost is. This is what we got left over for food. So if we've got an entree that costs this much, this is what we've got left to buy for fruits and vegetables. And school nutrition people know how to make change out of a penny. They are used to being very, very frugal and used to doing with very little. And I gave them the information that they needed. I try to give as much information as they needed, help coach them through some difficult problems. Like I watched invoices when they came in, and seeing like who was spending more than another, and, you know, coaching them on maybe how to reduce that cost and stuff, but they learned and they did fantastic with it.
For us, for ours, we just control it through our order guides. So like we utilize the DoD app, that's where their seasonal comes from. And I just take away the items that are high priced. And the things that I know that they're not supposed to be using are the things that are just too costly for us.
Yeah.
And so then that leaves the options that are within our range.
I've heard that strategy be used by a lot. We did not take off the expensive items. And again, like we tried to make sure that they understood that they were spending money in a budget that was limited. But I didn't want to take them off because, again, if we're trying to increase variety of what students see and are exposed to help our sustainability efforts, we wanted them to see a lot of different kinds of fruits and vegetables. And it really was a job enrichment thing for our team to have that type of trust and flexibility built in and professionalism built into what their role was, that they really found different and unique ways to when they wanted to buy those more expensive things, how they offset it with something else. And so all I can say is they did fantastic with it. And finances were always a struggle because it just is in school nutrition, but it wasn't ever really so much of a struggle. When we first started, we were in the red, and within the first 3 or 4 years, we turned our program into the black, and we stayed in the black for the rest of my time there. And so, and that was with them being in charge of what they were procuring. So.
Did you ever have an issue with sites that were like that were not serving exciting varieties though? Or just didn't serve any variety? Every day was like carrots, celery sticks, and lettuce or anything like that?
I'd have to say no. If I ever had a bad day, like in my office administratively, it was like, oh, I need to go out to a kitchen, because it made my heart happy to see the work that they were doing. And I would always walk in the front door, because what was I going to see first? Come on, Dean, what was I going to see first?
Fruits and veggies.
Absolutely. Beautiful fruits and veggie bars. And it just made my heart happy what they always put together. Not sometimes, every day. Every day they did. I mean, during the pandemic, I had to like almost beg them to back off, because they were still trying to do what they did pre-pandemic, and they didn't have the staff, and they were burning out. And it's like, you guys, you can't keep doing this. But it was what they wanted to do for the students, because they felt like the students needed the vitamins and minerals and everything more than they ever did before. And so like I had to have them back off of it after we came back from the pandemic. So again, give them the information and training that they need to know, and continued support, and they take great pride and responsibility and engagement in that whole procurement practice. They really enjoy that work. Well, we have 3 minutes left, and we'll have to move this one forward to next week, but I want to talk a little bit about sustainable procurement. I don't have a lot of slides around it, but I think it's important to wait till next week, because it is a very rich resource that I have that I would like to share with you on good food purchasing practices. And I think we will just, end with this. Never underestimate the power of small steps. It is what gets you to your destination. When we plan too large of a step, it seems impossible, and it changes our mind frame about what we think is possible. But if we create small steps for what we can do to create lasting, sustainable change that is going to be impactful for our children, for our programs, for our climate, for our earth, it is possible to make those changes. So with that, because I know that you are all incredibly hardworking school nutrition professionals, I am going to end the night. I'd like to end with thoughts and questions, but I'm not going to keep anybody any longer. I know that you've got a big work day tomorrow again. So I thank you all for your time and attention tonight, and we'll see you next week again.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Barbara, good night.
You, good night.
Bye.